Greetings, YouTubes. I apologize for the noise in the background. I am doing laundry, but I gotta film when I have the time and when my thoughts are in the right place. So I have been rereading, or have reread, the book Everstone Blood Legacy. I hadn't looked at it in a while, and I wanted to give it a viewing. And as I had picked up the Laneth setting book for the game, um, from the same people who produced it, I actually picked it up off of RPG Now, I think it was. And because I like to support, small producers, even though it was produced in 2004, there's no reason I shouldn't. And I own physical copies of the book. I think I own 2 physical copies of the book. And so again, I like to support small users, and I like their content. Everstone's an interesting take on the D20 system. If you aren't familiar with it, it is based off of the BESM D20 rule set, which and Big Eyes Small Mouth, which is an anime style take on the D20 system. It is a point-based D20 game. So if you like point-based systems and you like the D20 system, I really suggest you check out both the BESM D20 rules and the Everstone Blood Legacy rules. And the setting for Everstone it's a kind of a version of the whole idea of Earth Dawn, in that something really bad happened. A whole bunch of people went underground. They sat underground for a really long time, and now they've reemerged to retake the territories that were lost. And so they're still doing battle with the bad guys, which are called the Hollow Lords in this setting, and what happened to the lands after that. And they even talk about the fact that in the past there were hundreds of different species that lived on the surface, and now there aren't. So there's only a handful of character races, and of course, but you could of course find others over time as you rediscover the world, find out that there are other locations that did the same thing your peoples did, which is some version of the go under the ocean or go under the earth and hide from the bad things for a while, maybe even sky cities, who knows. But the point is that you could expand them as you wanted to as you were exploring. And I really liked their take on the system, because it allowed a lot of customization for each different of the classes. And they have analogs of like fighters and rangers and mages and clerics and things like that. And they're not similar to like D&D or Pathfinder in the least. They're their own thing. And it was a lot of customization, because you could very much decide for yourself if you wanted to have a very defensive character, a very offensive character. All the classes use the same chart for experience and for bonuses. If you want to get better at being a combatant than what the base chart gives you, you have to buy that as an attribute for your character over time. It's, again, point-based, so you get character points every single level, as well as obviously when you start. But it also uses energy points. So if you like a spell point style system, this is right in your wheelhouse. Now, I'm a big advocate for Dreamsguard Press's work with Pathfinder. Absolutely, in my opinion, the best spell point system there has ever been created. I think they hit the sweet spot for me, and I have not seen anything else that even comes close to doing it as well. It is a large system. It has got lots of different options. I think it could meet anyone's need for either a magic or a psionic system. It's here. It's right there. And I love it. But seeing someone else's take on a spell point system is also intriguing to me. And everybody in the game has energy points, and those energy points in Bloodstone are used to fuel both your overtly magical abilities, like spell casting, as well as your internal kind of powers and things that'll let you do really funky stuff, kind of a wushu martial art vibe there, where you can do extraordinary things by using your energy pool to then power your abilities within your class or within your species, because there are species abilities as well as class abilities, so you can really combine those well if you want to have a particular build you're going to go to. And you can play a golem, which is really cool. But one thing you're going to have to deal with is that using magic items in this game requires a skill, because each magic item has an energy pool. So this is where I begin to get to the point where I'm kind of bothered by some of the things that Bloodstone does. There's a lot of bookkeeping. You've got character points, and admittedly, those are only spent once in a while, so that's not a lot of bookkeeping. At the beginning of your character development, and every time you level up, you got to spend character points. Okay, so that's not a huge amount of bookkeeping. Okay, that's a relatively acceptable level. But then you have energy points, and your now have to keep track of your personal energy points every single time you use them. And they come back relatively rapidly. The personal energy points you have come back at a rate of, like, I think it's 1 per level per hour. So if you're 5th level and you have 20 energy points, or 25 energy points, say, that's going to come back in 5 hours. And then you're taught back up again. And then you can go use your energy points again. And you're going to be spending them freely, because sometimes these abilities, they could might use like, 7 or 9 energy points at a go. So you may be boom, boom, boom in a battle, and very shortly you're out. And then you have to start coming up with new strategies. But your magic items also have power points, where the bloodstone comes in from the name of the game. The bloodstones are the energy magical batteries of the world. So that's more bookkeeping. So now you have to keep track of how many energy points every single magic item you own has. Your magic weapon has got energy points. Your magic shield, there's one behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a magic shield. There's a shield behind me. It's a riot shield. That's got energy points. Your armor has energy points. Your magic necklace, which is doing something, has got energy points, and they're fueled by bloodstone, which is absurdly heavy, because it's like 1 ounce of bloodstone is equal to 1 energy point. And some of these, like a sword with 16 or 12 energy points on it, means it's got a 12 ounce. No sword has 12 ounces of stone attached to it. It's not a sword anymore. It's a wall hanger. Yeah, I would definitely have to retool the way they handle that, as well as their skill system, which is very clunky. The 3rd edition, I would use the Pathfinder system, and I would make it much more streamlined. But to use some of these items, you have to have a skill check for your ability to use the magic runes that power them. So again, you've got a battery, the bloodstone, and then the runes, which take energy out of the power to do the thing. There's a lot of different little details here, and it's a lot of bookkeeping in my book. But one of the things that bothers me is some of the spell casting takes a skill to use and energy points. And that's the title of this video. That's what bugs me. I think if you're going to have something based as a skill, then you base it as a skill. And you accept that it will be used often. And you find a means of controlling that often use in another means. If something's going to be a spell point system, then that's what the mitigating factor is. The person has a pool of spell points, and as that pool shrinks, they have to become more and more conservative about what they do, or accept the fact that in that battle they are going to end up with nothing and hope they get another option. They've got magic items with them. They've got a buddy that can help them. You can use personal energy points in Everstone to also fuel your magic items, but most people can do it at a very poor ratio. It's like 3 energy points to 1 magic item point. Some of the mages can do better. They can get good at it and do 1-to-1. So that's you can use your personal energy to fuel your magic items if you need it. But if you're out of both, you're still screwed. Hope you've got a dagger. But it bugs me to have a system that says you have to roll a skill to use your ability, and I can understand the framework of that, but you also have to spend energy points. To me, that seems like it's double dipping. You're already putting a person to a position where they may fail, potentially spectacularly, because if you've got a failure system, what happens if they roll a 1? There's going to be critical failures as well as critical successes. That's a bad thing. When you're trying to cast a spell and you roll a 1, that's usually a bad thing. And ironically, the higher level you are, the more often you'll be using your spells and such, the more likely you are to roll a 1. So high-level characters actually suffer more from that particular issue than low-level characters, unless you have a mitigation system put in place so that high-level characters suffer less from those failures, they actually suffer more than a low-level character. So you have to make sure you don't have that happening to your characters. It makes no sense to have Han Solo having more issues than, Luke Skywalker in the first film. He's more capable than Luke is. He should be screwing up less often than Luke is. Later, that they pass each other. But at that time, Han was the more skilled of those two people, and Luke was not. But having a system that says you have to roll and potentially fail and potentially get a failure and spend your pool of points, to me, seems punishing. It seems like it's double dipping, and it bugs me. So I want to open up this discussion. Do you feel that a system that just lets you use things as skills has to have some other controlling thing? So if you just like pure skills, and I've actually read a psionic system that talked about that, allowing psionic powers to just be skills. That means everybody's got them, everybody can use them every single round. It's a much different world than where you have spell points or a Vancian system. Or do you think if you're going to have to roll a skill, you should have a Vancian style system that says, okay, you can only use this many per day. Yes, you're rolling them, but you're only going to have this many chances per day of succeeding. I would not count a failure as a use of an ability unless it was a 1. Other than that, you failed, but you didn't use up that slot. Or do you favor just a spell point system? It says that there's no skill involved. You decide you want to use it. You always succeed, but you have to deplete your pool of energy points. Or do you actually think it's okay to have a system that says you have to roll with a potential chance of failure as well as deplete your spell point, your energy point, or what have you, to fuel those other abilities? Do you think that's fair? So I've been blathering on for far too long on this topic and talking about all kinds of different things. So I hope I haven't bored you. But I want to talk about this. I want to get other people's points of view because I got to tell you, to me, it really feels like it's double dipping. I feel that asking someone to have a role as well as having to pay for them at the same time, I think is egregiously costly. I think it's unfair. It's burdensome on the player and their character in my book. Also, there's a lot of bookkeeping in Bloodstone when it comes to keeping track of which of your items has how many charges in it, and counting every single point would be tedious. I've never had a chance to play the system. I really love the system, but I've never actually had it in play. That's a lot of bookkeeping, and just reading it makes my head swim. So all right, so let's talk about systems that use chances to succeed, a skill system, as well as spell points together. Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's unfair? And how would you handle a system that uses a skill check for your spells?